In the depths of a sprawling stronghold, where cobblestone corridors twisted like the spine of some ancient beast, there lived a villager, unlike any other. Erasmus had once been an ordinary librarian in a peaceful village, trading enchanted books for emeralds, and living a quiet life among his leather-bound treasures. But that was before the incident with the cursed tome, before his transformation, and before he became the guardian of knowledge that was never meant to be discovered. The curse had changed him in ways both subtle and profound. His robes, once brown and simple, had darkened to an unsettling shade of purple that seemed to shift and writhe in the torchlight. His eyes, formerly warm and welcoming, now glowed with an otherworldly violet luminescence. Most disturbing of all, wherever Erasmus walked, the very air around him crackled with unstable magic, causing blocks to flicker between states and reality itself to bend at the edges. For months, he had wandered the underground labyrinth of the stronghold, desperately seeking the end portal that lay hidden somewhere within its maze-like structure. The cursed knowledge burning in his mind told him that only by destroying the tome in the void beyond the portal could he hope to break free from his affliction. But the stronghold was vast, and Erasmus was not alone in its depths. The Silverfish had noticed him first. These small, segmented creatures that dwelt within the stone blocks sensed the magical disturbance that followed in his wake. They would emerge from the walls whenever he passed, their multiple legs clicking against the cobblestone in an unsettling rhythm that echoed through the corridors. At first, they had merely watched him with their black, unblinking eyes. But as days turned to weeks, their behavior had grown increasingly aggressive, as if the curse that plagued Erasmus was somehow calling to them, promising them power beyond their simple existence. On this particular night, as Erasmus clutched the cursed tome tighter to his chest, he could feel their presence growing stronger. The book itself pulsed with malevolent energy, its pages whispering secrets and languages that predated the world above. Each whisper sent waves of corruption through the air, causing the very stones around him to crack and split, releasing more silverfish into the already crowded passages. As he rounded a corner, following the faint purple glow that emanated from his destination, Erasmus discovered that he was no longer the hunter in this underground maze. He had become the hunted. Behind him, the clicking had grown to a deafening crescendo. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of silverfish were following in his wake, their bodies gleaming like liquid mercury in the dancing torchlight. The realization struck him with terrifying clarity. The curse wasn't just transforming him, it was transforming everything around him. The silverfish were evolving, growing larger and more intelligent with each passing moment. Some had begun to walk upright, their front appendages elongating into something resembling arms. Others had developed a crude form of communication, chittering to one another in the complex patterns that suggested planning and strategy. Erasmus quickened his pace, his robes billowing behind him as he navigated the treacherous corridors. The stronghold seemed to stretch on forever, each turn revealing new passages that definitely hadn't been there before. The curse was rewriting the very architecture of the place, expanding it infinitely to prevent his escape. But he pressed on, driven by a determination that bordered on madness. The first attack came without warning. A silverfish, now nearly the size of a spider, launched itself from a crack in the ceiling, its mandibles aimed directly at Erasmus's throat. The librarian raised the cursed tome instinctively, and purple energy erupted from its pages, vaporizing the creature mid-flight. But the magic that saved him also sent another pulse of corruption through the stronghold, and Erasmus could hear the responding roar of approval from the growing army behind him. He began to run. The pursuit that followed was unlike anything the ancient stronghold had ever witnessed. Erasmus sprinted through corridors that rearranged themselves as he passed, leaping over sudden chasms that opened in the floor and ducking under stone blocks that fell like rain from the ceiling. Behind him, the Silverfish horde had become something far more terrifying, a writhing mass of chitinous bodies that flowed through the passages like liquid nightmare, growing stronger and more organized with each second. As he ran, Erasmus began to notice strange details about the stronghold that he had missed before. The walls weren't just made of cobblestone and stone bricks. They were covered in ancient symbols that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the cursed tome. These weren't decorative carvings. They were warnings, left by whoever had originally built this place. Warnings about the very book he now carried. The symbols told a story that made his blood run cold. Long ago, another librarian had discovered this tome in the depths of a desert temple. Like Erasmus, he had been curious, scholarly, and utterly unprepared for what lay within its pages. The knowledge contained in the book was indeed powerful. It was the concentrated wisdom of the End itself, the collective consciousness of every Enderman that had ever existed. But mortal minds weren't meant to contain such vast alien intelligence. The first librarian had built this stronghold as a prison, not just for the book, but for himself. He had realized too late that the curse could spread, that it would eventually consume everything if left unchecked. So he had trapped himself here, along with the tome, hoping that the isolation would contain the corruption. The Silverfish hadn't been inhabitants of the stronghold originally. They had been his assistants, other villagers who had tried to help him. The curse had transformed them, just as it was now transforming their descendants. This revelation hit Erasmus just as he burst into the portal room, a vast circular chamber where floating blocks of strange greenish stone hovered in the air above a pool of lava. In the center of the formation was the end portal, but it was incomplete. Several of the Eye of Ender stones were missing from their frames, leaving dark, empty sockets that seemed to stare at him accusingly. Behind him, the sound of approaching Silverfish grew deafening. They had learned to move in perfect synchronization, their thousands of legs creating a rhythmic thunder that shook dust from the ceiling. But as they poured into the portal room, something unexpected happened. The incomplete portal began to resonate with the cursed tome, and reality started to unravel at the seams. Cracks appeared in the air itself, revealing glimpses of the end dimension beyond. A realm of floating islands and towering obsidian pillars beneath a starless sky. Through these tiers in space, Erasmus could see them. The Endermen, tall and dark, watching him with their glowing purple eyes. They weren't angry or threatening. They were waiting for him to make a choice. The Silverfish army had reached the chamber's edge, but they dared not enter. Something about the portal room's energy held them back, creating an invisible barrier that caused them to writhe and hiss in frustration. Erasmus stood at the center of it all, the cursed tome burning like a small sun in his hands, its pages fluttering though there was no wind. In that moment of perfect stillness, Erasmus understood what he had to do. The portal didn't need to be complete to work. It needed to be destroyed. The tome contained the knowledge of the end, and the end was where it belonged. But if he simply threw it into an incomplete portal, the energies would remain unstable. The curse would spread, and eventually, every creature in the stronghold would be transformed into something unrecognizable. Instead, Erasmus made a choice that the first librarian had been too afraid to make. He stepped forward, placed the cursed tome on the incomplete portal frame, and then did something that would echo through the stronghold for generations to come. He began to read from it. The words that poured from his mouth weren't in any language spoken by villagers or players. They were the primordial sounds of creation and destruction, the verbal components of reality itself. As he spoke, the incomplete portal began to collapse inward, creating a controlled implosion that would seal the rift between dimensions forever. The Silverfish, sensing what was happening, made one final desperate charge. But it was too late. The collapsing portal created a vortex of energy that pulled everything toward its center. The tome, the curse, the transformed creatures, and Erasmus himself. In the final moments before the portal sealed completely, he felt the alien knowledge leaving his mind, flowing back to where it belonged. The explosion that followed was both deafening and silent, visible and invisible, destructive and creative all at once. When the light faded and the dust settled, the portal room was empty save for a single librarian in brown robes, sitting peacefully among scattered books and papers. The curse was gone. The silverfish had returned to their natural size and simple intelligence, and the stronghold had become just another ruin in the endless underground. But Erasmus, the real Erasmus, not the cursed shadow he had become, was also gone. In his place sat a new guardian, one who had chosen to stay behind and ensure that the knowledge contained in the stronghold's remaining books would be used wisely. Some said he was the first librarian, finally freed from his centuries-long imprisonment. Others believed he was Erasmus himself, transformed once again, but this time by choice rather than accident. What everyone agreed on was this: the stronghold was no longer a place of terror and transformation. It had become a true library once more, where the patient guardian would trade knowledge for wisdom, books for understanding, and occasionally, for those brave enough to seek him out, answers for the questions that kept them awake at night. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind howled through the corridors above, visitors to the stronghold could swear they heard the soft sound of pages turning, accompanied by the gentle humming of someone who had finally found peace among his books, deep beneath the world where the sun never shines and the only light comes from the warm glow of knowledge, safely contained and properly shared.